A player the caliber of Jason Tatum goes down, the Olympic gold medalist that he is, the NBA champion that he is, and the consistent all-star and all-NBA player that he is. It leads to the NBA media and the general public coming off your team as far as your success as the season goes. And also from the outside looking in, when you look at the Boston Celtics situation, the way that they went this offseason, a lot of people are looking at it like, okay, we look at them from their 2023 championship, the beginning of that season, to where they won it in 2024, this roster is starting to look a lot different. Well, that's because with Jason Tatum, when you have players as good as him, you're going to break the bank to put other good guys around him. And the Boston Celtics had a very expensive team, so they had to get rid of some of those guys. So from the way that it's looking, they're shipping out Drew Holiday, who's one of the best defenders in the NBA, contributed big time to the Boston Celtics championship. They're shipping out Kristaps Porzingis, who's just 30 years of age. We know he have his health issues, but it's still a very talented basketball player, but making a bunch of money. And then they ship out, who am I missing? Drew Holiday. They ship out Kristaps Porzingis, and also they did not re-sign Al Horford, who went to the Golden State Warriors. Luke Cornett is also no longer a part of the Boston Celtics. So with all of those high-quality basketball players walking out the door for the Boston Celtics, and then the injury to Jason Tatum, I feel like it's easy. It makes it easy for that to be what people are focusing on. But when I look at the Boston Celtics, or I think another thing that's important to realize, that when those many guys are going out, that means more guys are coming in. And the Boston Celtics, they went out and got guys who were more contract friendly on their roster, but can still contribute it to winning basketball, because we know that's what the Boston Celtics is. The Boston Celtics, they're not complaining, not complaining, but they're not planning on missing the playoffs this next NBA season. They're not preparing to be an easy out in the playoffs going into next season. And when you really deeply look at this roster, they have some very nice pieces. But to look at some of those guys that they brought in this offseason, they went out and they got to bolster their front court, because they did lose a lot of bigs this offseason. They went out and got Chris Boucher from the Toronto Raptors, who's played some really good ball, or some really decent ball, I should say, in his NBA career, but has been to the playoffs numerous times with the Toronto Raptors. And then the biggest hit in this offseason for the Boston Celtics, and a guy that I think can come here and really, really take his career. Like, this could be so good for his NBA career, and he has so much potential. I don't think people realize how good of a basketball player that the Boston Celtics have gotten in Anfernee Simons. And I'm really big on Anfernee Simons. When I first started doing YouTube, I'm a big time Damian Lillard fan, so I was covering the Portland Trail Blazers, and I was watching Anfernee Simons. Literally, he transitioned from a guy that's not playing that much, a guy that started to get some minutes, and then a guy that became some starter, and his production on the basketball court was significantly rising. So he already has that pedigree to his basketball career, the ability to continuously getting better, and then it's obvious in his game. He's made so many strides since he's come into the league. And my favorite way was to describe Anfernee Simons was that he's a crossbreed between Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. They somehow went into a lab and had a basketball baby, and it was Anfernee Simons. Because what I see from him when I look at Anfernee Simons, and I'll be like, wow, that's CJ McCollum. When you look at his ball handling abilities, and then his ability to create shots off the dribble or create shots with his footwork, whether it's a side step shot, a step back, or a spin shot. CJ McCollum, when you think about CJ McCollum, he's not really that athletic, he's not really that fast, but he's so damn shifty. I see a lot of that in Anfernee Simons. And then where I see the Dame at is his ability to knock down that three-point shot. And it's not just the ability, but the way that he does it. Very quick release on his jump shot, and I actually think he has one of the prettiest jumpers in the league. He's also one of the best heat check players in the NBA. He can get extremely hot, and I think there's going to definitely be some games at TD Garden where he has that place absolutely rocking, because he can have a game where he knocked down, 8, 9, 10 3-pointers. So that's who Anfernee Simons is on a surface level as a basketball player, and there's definitely so much more to him. And he's also not the perfect basketball player, and that's why I think this situation is going to be so great for him, because the Boston Celtics, they have shown us that they have one of the best developmental programs in the National Basketball Association. When we look at just some of the guys that has come to the Boston Celtics and gotten so much better in just recent memory, when we look at the player that Derek White has become since he's gotten to the Boston Celtics, we look at what Kristaps Porzingis was able to do with the Boston Celtics, come here and win an NBA championship and be one of the best post players in the NBA, and most of it is because you also should get put really in a good situation. They just know how to build their rosters. We look at how Al Horford was able to come to the Boston Celtics and prolong his NBA career, some of the ways he was able to transform his game and even become a part of that offense. So I'm extremely excited to see how the Boston Celtics can help Anfernee Simons work on his weaknesses. And Joe Mazzulla has already touched on, and I'm going to be paraphrasing here, what he wants Anfernee Simons to get better at. Of course, defense, and that's one of the identities of the Boston Celtics. Not just this Boston Celtics team, but the Boston Celtics, they've always been known for making it tough and gritty on the defensive side of the ball. So they definitely want him to make improvements there. And I never thought about this for Anfernee Simons, but they want him to improve his physicality on both the offensive and the defensive side of the ball. So I think that could be big time for him as well, because he is, unlike CJ McCollum. I know we said CJ McCollum is not athletic, but Anfernee Simons, he is very athletic. Like, he's above the rim athletic, like can get up and poster a guy type athletic. So so being more physical on the offensive side of the ball and defensively can definitely benefit him. So I'm loving that for Anfernee Simons and the Boston Celtics. And then we just look at the scheme. We look at the scheme, the coaching, and the personnel that Anfernee Simons gets to coming for the Portland Trailblazers. Definitely not. I'm not, slighting them in any way, but we got to call it what it is. They're better. They have a much better pedigree as an organization than the Boston Celtics, and at this moment they have a much better roster as well. When we look at some of the guys that Anfernee Simons is going to get to play alongside, Jaylen Brown, a guy that's putting consistent pressure on the rim and collapsing the defense. He now has another elite sharpshooter to kick the basketball out to, and Anfernee Simons. He has a gadget guy in Derek White, who's a little bit more than a gadget guy, but a guy that does a little bit of everything and defend in a very high level, who's also a high level playmaker in Derek White. He has other sharpshooters to play alongside when he has the ball in his hands, with Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard and Derek White being a sharpshooter as well. So I'm loving the personnel that Anfernee Simons is going to get to come in and play alongside. And then also the system that the Boston Celtics run. They run a very, fast-paced game. They like to get up and down, and they like to do the best part of Anfernee Simons' game, and that's shoot the three-point shot. I think we're going to be seeing Anfernee Simons have a lot of high three-point mix games this season. When we look at some of the years that he's had in the NBA, efficiently shooting the ball 40% from three multiple times in his NBA career, and even had a season where he shot 51% alone on catch and shoot threes. So Joe Mazzulla, he's definitely going to be loving that from Anfernee Simons. And then also he's going to be adding some flexibility to the Boston Celtics offense. They didn't really have a guy that they really like to run around off screens. Anfernee Simons, he has that to his game. He has good off-ball movement, and then, like you said, he can catch that ball and shoot it from so many different angles and be efficient from it. And then he's an outstanding, dynamic ball handler and playmaker. He's going to be able to run the pick and roll with multiple Boston Celtics Celtics players on this team, and he's going to be able to be that playmaker and that guy that can create his own offense. And it's looking like for the start of the season, he's going to be running the second unit for the Boston Celtics, where he could still definitely come off the bench and average 20 plus points per game, and maybe even he starts playing so well that he might become a starter for the Boston Celtics. So, and that's why I think the Boston Celtics, why they got themselves a nuclear weapon on their hands. And just to briefly recap it, they get a very talented player in Anfernee Simons. They get to come and put him immediately in the best basketball situation so far in his NBA career. Their system is tailored around the way that he already plays, so he's not going to have to change his play style. He might even get more comfortable as a basketball player. He already had a game in the preseason where he had a team high in points. He scored 21 points coming off the bench for the Boston Celtics. So there is so much there. And then also the Celtics are known for making guys better, and he's already been challenged, publicly by the coaching staff, and not in no negative way, in a let's get better type of way. So we're gonna see what happens with the Boston Celtics this season. They're definitely gonna be a team to not sleep on. I advise people not to do that, especially listening to Jaylen Brown. He sounds extremely motivated this season. So if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below if you agree or disagree, and then subscribe. We do this all the time, man. And that's curtains.